what advice perhaps can either one of you have to, men out there that are fathers with young boys, men that are fathers with teenagers, or even perhaps a teenager that is growing up without a father? Like, can we speak directly to those men right now?
I'd like to, Vince, let me say one thing. Just I want to preventative here. I think what my thought pattern, I was obsessed. I was not, got a couple things here I pulled down from the shelf. Two ideas. Like, I had a poem I memorized when the guys were small called My Little Boy's Dad. And I memorized this great poem here, My Little Boy's Dad. At the last stanza says, I may never come to glory, I may never gather gold, and men may count me as a failure when my business life is told. But if my little boy can just grow up godly, then I'll be glad. Then I'll know I've been successful as my little boy's dad. Now, whether that's right or wrong, that was my obsession. I didn't have the obsession Napoleon Hill had to think and grow rich. He said that bottom line of that book is today's obsessions become tomorrow's realities. More than anything, and again, it's probably because of an absence in my life, I wanted to have a marriage that was worth the trouble, like that my marriage mattered, and that my kids I would not be the reason my kids walked away from God. That if they walked away from God, it wasn't because dad was an asshole or a bad example, but they walked away because they intellectually or morally just said, you know what, I'm out. Dad, it's not your fault. It's not mom's fault. I didn't want to be the one who I was the reason for their defection. Now, there's a great verse, and Tim Keller, who's one of the best Bible teachers out there in Manhattan, he quotes this, Proverbs 19:18. You want to write this down for your people. Discipline your son while there is hope, and otherwise you will ruin their lives. And he says the word discipline there is not punish. It's coach. It's the closest word we have today is coach. So I was into discipline/punish, not discipline/coach. I think Vince talked about some tips. I think later on you begin to realize I need to, okay, this is how you're playing the game of life. Here's a thought on how to do that better or how to tweak. Like I came in like a tank and tried to force change on them. And I think what I ended up doing was they would retreat. And each of my boys is different. Vince is the one who gives me the biggest pass. He forgives me the most. My other two boys are more analytical. Like yeah, you did hurt me, Dad. Like that really did hurt. And Vince protects me. I don't know why. He has this. He's kind of got. But we were the hardest on him. Truth be told, we were the hardest. But because he was maybe the firstborn. But discipline your son while there's hope. See, there's still hope when they're in the house. There's hope, and you can coach them and guide them. But that's why it's important to spend as much time. I mean, I just see guys obsessed with their success at work, whether it's online or offline, brick and mortar. And if they could just take a percentage of that and invest it in their kids, when you see your kids struggling like I did, my dad didn't know better, but I needed help. And they didn't know how I suffered. And if your kid is suffering academically, for example, if they suffer school-wise, that's hard on kids. And if they're suffering because you're not there, that's even more painful. If they're suffering because they've got something in their DNA that's just they're struggling, whatever, that's another thing. You get help. But if they're struggling because you're not present, that's bad. To me, that's wrong. So I felt that deeply, that I don't want my kids to suffer because of malpractice as a parent. I want to do my best, not just to give them presents, but as they say, to be present and engaged. So I hope that helps to understand, rules without relationship lead to rebellion. And so I did invest in the relationship. And the other plaque I have is 50 phrases to encourage your children. Like, oh, wow. Like I memorized these little things just because I needed help. I wasn't parented that well. So I kind of did my homework. There's no excuse today to be a lousy parent or dad. There's no excuse. If we're lousy, it's because we've made other choices.